Yes, sir. This is going to be fun. This is going to be fun. All right, we're on Instagram today as well. Code
Wow.
Keepers, peace and blessings. It's been a minute. I've taken a while away and just been working on something I want to start showing the proof of. I've been cooking in the kitchen. I got the meal ready. It's in the back room warming right now. I'm going to share it with y'all in just a few minutes. Minister Zumbi, how you doing, bro? What it do?
Peace. Finally getting my health and strength back. It's been a
Ashe.
journey.
All right, all right. Well, hey, look, this is going to be a combination of precise thinking and get on code. Tonight, we're talking about the science of money, the science of money, and it's the 3% rule. So let's
Mm.
get on code.
Like I said, like Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, do for self or suffer the consequences. How the hell do you make the CIA boy the hero when we know what the history has been between the CIA and Africa? Only when the father makes his transition to the ancestral realm of the Agungun does the son truly become a man.
Word up, word up. That's the intro, and now we about to get into the meat of the subject. Let's just dive on in, brother. The science of money is the 3% rule. All right, I know about the 5%, peace to the gods and the earth and the beautiful people of the universe.
Mm.
Um, I don't know about the 3% rule, man. You got to school me on this, bro.
Okay. There's a book. I just happen to have the book in front of me here. Let me make sure I get it in front of the camera. This is Brian Tracy. He's got a book called The Science of Money: How to Increase Your Income and Become Wealth. It's a series of interviews that he conducts with Dan Strutzel. And in this book, in one of the interviews that is being conducted, Dan asked Brian Tracy about how to increase one's wealth through increasing one's income. And Brian Tracy mentioned a concept that was commonly known as the Earl Nightingale rule, because it was Earl Nightingale that came up with it, or what is commonly referred to as the 3% rule. The 3% rule says this, that 3% of your income should go back and be reinvested in your personal development. Okay. And that reinvestment can be in home study courses, online courses, books, CD sets, DVD sets, etc. So, in order for you to achieve, whatever level of financial freedom and economic independence that you want, um, the best investment that you can make is to make in yourself. Now, just think about it. Just
Yo,
three pennies out of every dollar
mhm.
going back into your personal and professional development.
I like that. I like the money changer in the background too.
Oh,
But that's intriguing because I teach my clients and my family that out of every dollar, you're supposed to tithe or give away 10%. And you
mhm,
can give it to the church, you can give it to an institution, you can give it to the poor. The interesting thing is, man, that law of karma is real.
mhm,
If you do for somebody else, threefold something comes your way.
right.
All right, so you're going to take 10% of that dollar and you're going to do something beautiful with it, helping somebody. You're going
Mhm,
to take 10% of that money and you're going to invest in your future, right?
mhm,
All right.
right.
Then you're going to take 10% of that money and you're going to invest it in something that's going to bring you returns.
Mhm,
So that leaves you the ability to take 70% of your earnings and live off of them. And in doing so, you've protected your future, you've created additional income, and you've helped people. And that helping people, comes back to you in many different ways. So you're saying now I should add on, you should take 3% and add that into professional development.
right. And the reason you should do that, for those of you who may have a copy of the Honorable Marcus Garvey's Course of African Philosophy, I can't remember the chapter, but he talks about how we should be engaged in 4 hours of, and I'm emphasizing the word productive,
Mm-hmm.
reading daily in your field. Okay. 4 hours of productive reading.
Now that's intriguing because a lot of the gurus and the messiahs and mentors that I've had have always talked about taking about an hour and a half out of their day and investing in reading, but they didn't say in a particular discipline. They all talked about reading in general.
Mm,
Um, you're saying I should take 4 hours out of my daytime and invest it in reading in my discipline, my course of study, my area of commerce, if you
mm.
will.
Your area of expertise, because and most of you have to remember, we're going back into, let's say, the late 30s when he put this course together. So there was no social media, there was no other media outlets that could distract us. So the 4 hours, what he wanted to promote and what he wanted to propagate was to produce a race of experts, whether it was in business, whether it was in science, whether it was in philosophy, uh, developing our expertise, and in his words, par excellence, to where we became second to none. And he felt that that 4 hours of productive reading on a daily basis would bring us to that. Now, here's something that I learned probably about maybe 20, 25 years ago. Um, if I told you that you could become an expert in something for under $50, would you believe me? Okay. Here's the challenge. How
You,
many
you
books?
you moved away too quickly, man. I had to really think about that.
Yeah. So
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 so the question again is,
if I told you that you can become an expert in something for under $50, would you believe me?
woo, I would say yes, man. We have YouTube University, we have the College of Google, we have
Well,
the
let's
libraries. Library
okay.
card is free.
Well,
Uh,
let's just do it this way. Okay. Um how many books, just books, minimum, how many books would you need to read in order to become an expert in a particular field? Minimum amount of books you would have to read.
all right, so I'm a person that doesn't. I have a hard time reading. I have to read things 3 times. The first
Okay.
time I read it is just to get through it, right?
Mm,
The second time I read it for fluency. The third time I read it for understanding. By the time I got to my fourth time, I really have a good grasp. I have a little bit of a learning disability. I kind of minimize it when I'm saying it's a little bit, but I have a bit of a learning disability, and I've learned over time that I need to expose myself to content 3 times before it makes sense.
okay.
So, with that being said, um, I don't know if reading or exposure to content or experience would the way I learn. I'm not sure if I can answer your question and say I need to read 50 books. I don't know if that works with my learning style.
Okay. So here's where I'm going with this.
Okay.
Okay. Minimum, and I'm emphasizing minimum, the minimum amount of books you need to read in order to be considered an expert, three.
Wait.
Okay.
You're telling me if I read 3 books on astrophysics,
Hmm.
I could be considered a an expert in astrophysics?
Yeah. And I'll tell you why. It's been statistics have shown that most of the American public would be lucky to read one book a year. And in most cases, that book is a romance novel. Okay. And this is no lie. So let's say you decide to read a book a week.
Okay.
Okay. So now you've read 52, at least 52 books in a year about a particular field. Do you realize how much further you've put yourself ahead of most of the American public who may only be able to read at anywhere between a sixth to an eighth grade level?
Intriguing.
Okay. So it doesn't take much for you to at least be considered an expert just
Hmm.
from reading. Okay. Because most people, what do they mostly read? Now, me being in upstate New York, the number one newspaper that everybody wants to read outside the New York Times is the New York Post.
All
Okay.
right, Dr. George Fraser tells us to read the New York Post.
Okay. But the reason I'm mentioning the New York Post, and I'm probably cynical when I say this, it may be one or two steps above the National Enquirer. Okay.
All right, so what's this have to do with the 3% rule, bro?
Well, what I'm getting at with the 3% rule is this, and I'm going back to productive reading. Okay. Being a productive reader. So you're not just exposing your mind to just any and everything. Okay. You're reading things that will help you promote yourself and move yourself further along, whether it's in a career, whether it's in business, whether it's in politics, etc. Again, what he was focused on was producing those who were experts or masters in their respective fields. Okay, that's what he wanted to promote. He says instead of us having to look to other people, we can become those masters.
I see the power move in that.
Okay.
I see the power move in that. Okay,
Now,
so
yeah.
if we become our own gurus, our own masters, we
Mm-hmm.
can take control of our own destinies, i.e., our bank accounts,
Right.
our communities,
Mm-hmm.
our families,
Right.
and our status quo here in the wilds of the United States.
Mm-hmm. And also, and I heard this from a preacher out of Texas. He says this when, especially because I get into the areas of business and economics. He says for every year you've been on the planet, there should be at least a book equivalent to your age. In other words, so let's say if you're 65,
Okay.
all right, there should be at least, you should have read at least 65 books dealing with business, personal finance, entrepreneurship, real estate investing, etc.
Okay.
Okay.
Now the interesting thing is, I mentioned I have a bit of a learning disability, but I do read a lot. I force myself to do it, and I read real estate books. I read books on business. I read books on motivation and books on metaphysics. And eat, man, I got 65 books in this room. My
Okay.
bedroom, my wife and I have maybe 150 books.
Mm-hmm.
And downstairs we probably have another 150. And I want
Okay.
to say in my garage we have, man, I know I easily have around 200 books.
Okay.
I have some classics too, man. I
Right.
have some classics. Yeah. All right.
And
All right. But that's so you're saying that if I'm 55, I should have at least 55 books on my discipline that I've read.
mm-hmm, exactly. In fact, for those of you who have read any of Dr. Dennis Kimbrough's work, go read his book, What Makes the Great Great. Okay. In that book, he says something very interesting, that there's a direct correlation between the size of your personal library and the size of your television screen.
Right. Okay. I've heard him say that. I've heard
Okay.
Dr. Dennis Kimbrough say that. Yeah. So
So,
let me ask the question again.
okay.
What's this got to do with money?
Again, in order for you to be able to master your money, you have to learn, once again, you have to learn the science of money, because money is really a science, just like anything else is a science. It's a discipline. Okay. And really, when you begin to understand uh, money, economics, business, etc., it's really a lifelong, it's a commitment to lifelong learning. Okay. You never really stop. Class is never out of session because economies come, economies go, economies change. Look where we're at right now. For those who may have come up in the industrial age, now we're in the information age. Okay. And so the rules of economics have changed in terms of how do you earn money? How do you invest money? How do you circulate your money? The way things may have been done in the industrial age don't work anymore.
Wow. Okay, I can get with that, and that
Okay.
actually goes right along with some of the teachings. I said earlier that I was cooking up something. It was in the back room. I was letting it
Mm,
warm before we brought it out for people to consume. But I think I might want to tap into it right now and just
okay.
let the people know what we're talking about. So I have this new project. It's my first documentary. It's called Generational Flip because it's
Mm,
time for us to do something very different than the generations before us. And it might be the reading piece, but it's
right.
definitely about that money piece. So we
Mm,
have episode 1, which features A. Donahue Baker, and A. Donahue Baker talks about you will be wealthier. And what he gives us is a 6-step plan that if you follow this plan, you will be wealthier. This plan will help you gain wealth, and it's and not only gain wealth but gain and maintain wealth. So,
mm,
episode 1, you will be wealthier, is about that. Episode 2, we will be wealthier. The emphasis is on the we, and these are strategies that we can employ as a family, as a community, as a crew, as a
mm,
tribe, as a cohort, whatever term you want to use, to make sure that that crew, that family, that tribe, that cohort is wealthier. It's more about group economic strategies. So episode 1 and 2 is available. If you look up generationalflip.com, that's generationalflip.com, you'll find this page. Generational Flip is a documentary media series focused on making intentional generational changes. All right, so had to do the self promotion, bro. I know you're
mm.
gonna hold up your book, so I had to
Yeah.
promote my documentary.
Okay.
Definitely check
And
that out.
for those who may or may not have picked up a copy, this is the Gospel of Afronomics Theology. This is the first edition. I'm still working on the expanded edition along with a workbook slash journal that I'm developing to go along with this. This is about 22 years worth of personal experience and research in areas of what I call the science of beef, beef standing for business, economics, entrepreneurship, and finance.
Wait. So, the good thing is, code keepers, if you go to generationalflip.com and check out the episode 1, you will be wealthier, and episode 2, we will be wealthier of Generational Flip. Minister Zumbi Shawala is in episode 2. And look, it's only $4. It's not a lot. It's an investment in your self investment. So, Zumbi, before you go into the science of beef, I want to get normally I say give me the 30-second version.
Mm.
I want you to give us the lowdown on the science of beef so that so we can see how this really works, man. So when you say the science of beef, and we're not
Mhm.
talking about the science of money, what are we talking about?
So the science of beef is really a kind of expanded thing. For those who have read Message to the Black Man by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he said that there were three sciences that a people must master in order to have any form of civilization. One, the science of business and economics. Two, the science of diplomacy, negotiation, and warfare. Three, the science of mate selection and genetic engineering. So I took that first science, the science of business, economics, and then I expanded it into entrepreneurship and finance, personal finance, etc., and created this thing, what I call the science of beef. Okay. Because any form of civilization, even if we're talking about a household, must have a strong economy in order to fuel the projects that people want to engage in. Okay. So that is kind of like the science of beef. What is business? What is economics? How do you take the resources that you already have and then convert them and maximize them to where you can expand? Okay. Entrepreneurship. What does it mean to create value for large groups of people or solving a problem for large groups of people via products and services? And then finance. You create the wealth, but now how do you manage it? How do you maintain it? Not just in your lifetime, but through future lifetimes, you see. So that is what I get into when I talk about the science of beef.
All right. And once again, beef stands for what?
Business, economics, entrepreneurship, finance.
All right. So when they say, where's the beef? They were talking about something and we thought they were talking about Wendy's food. Yo, it's amazing how these esoteric messages, maybe not esoteric, these messages have been embodied in the messaging that we've had all our lives, and we never knew.
Mm.
We never knew because I think that business economics, what is it? Business economics,
Entrepreneurship.
entrepreneurship, and finance has definitely been what Wendy's has been about.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely been what McDonald's has been about.
Right.
So, hey, we're back at the point. The question, the topic, the conversation we're having tonight is called "The Science of Money is the 3% Rule." So let's go back to Earl Nightingale's rule. And
Mm.
can you give me some examples of people who've used this rule and prospered?
Let's take our elder Les Brown. Okay. In an interview, he talked about how he had invested, I want to say, about $10,000 in himself. Okay. And that came through, and, I'm using his language, the books, the tapes, because back in the day during the 80s, we were still into, cassettes. Those home study courses came in cassettes along with the book. Going to seminars, he talked about how he would save up all this money and would rush to go to a Zig Ziglar conference to understand sales, or go see Jim Rohn to understand another aspect of business. His personal mentor, Mike Williams, who got him into the speaking game. Okay. So that $10,000 investment that he put back into himself, as of right now, career earnings, I would dare say well over 100 million. Okay. Because he took a portion of what he earned and put it back into himself. Okay. So what did he do? He basically made himself, think of it this way. Imagine you are a company that is publicly traded, whether it's on NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange.
All
Okay.
right. So when you say publicly traded, you mean a company that I can find in the stock market. Is that
Right.
correct? Okay.
Right. So you treat yourself as that. What are you doing to enhance the intrinsic value of who you are? And what are you doing, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're climbing that corporate ladder? What are you doing to show the market that you are worth an investment? You are worth being invested in.
Now that's intriguing. I spend my money to go to the gym. Well, I need to spend more money. Well, I really just need to spend more time in the gym, not more money.
You know,
Planet Fitness, $10 a month. Hey, that's good to go. I spent money to go to school,
mm,
and I think many of us believe that after we've gotten our degree, we can stop. What you're promoting is that we spend 3% of all of our future income for the rest of our lives, forever and ever and ever and ever, into professional development.
Hmm. Into our personal and really and I'm probably being influenced by the ancestor Reverend Ike when he says, "Don't say spend, say invest, say circulate." Because if you say spend, if you spend it, you end it. Okay, so I'm saying invest in yourself because we
Wait,
want
wait, wait. If you spend it, you
you
end
end
it.
it because if you look up the word spend, what does it mean? To exhaust,
Exhaust,
to waste.
extinguish. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
to waste.
Okay.
Okay. Ooh.
So again, what does the Torah, the Bible, and the Quran say about speaking realities into existence? Okay, but that's another story. Okay.
Or is it? Or
Well,
is it?
it could be. Well, I think that's part of that investment in terms of your language, because if we're talking about investing in ourselves, one of the first things we need to invest in is the transformation of our language and
That's
how
right.
we speak. You know, like you had to invest in understanding the language of the real estate game. Okay, you had to understand, you know, what does what does particular words mean within a real estate subgenre, or in this genre? What does hard money mean, etc.
Right. Yeah, and it was a interesting experience, learning what ARV stood
Mm-hmm.
for and
Right.
CMA, what that stands for, and understanding the 65% or 70% rule in
Mm-hmm.
investing. You're right, learning about hard money, and I'm always learning, man. I tell you what, one of the best things about getting into the field is you really get into the field. You really get immersed in the mores and the terminology that's, sacrosanct for each particular area.
Right.
I do want to take a quick break and say, hey, salute. We love y'all to those who are watching this on YouTube. And hey, we got some Twitter, some X people in the house. So salute to all the X folk, X men, X women who are watching us right now. We love y'all. All right. Um, yeah, I dig this idea, man, because as a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
I have to go to professional development and I have to keep track of the professional development that I attend and
Right.
demonstrate toward the end of the year when I'm sitting down with the assistant principal or the principal that the professional development that I've attended, I've been able to utilize some of the strategies, the new information, the new concepts, or just a revision of things that we learned before. I have to demonstrate the usage of that information. All right.
Right.
I'm involved in Black Brand, where for Hampton Roads, that's the Black Chamber of Commerce.
Mm-hmm.
And primarily, I don't want to say primarily, but one of the primary experiences that my firm, Positive Vibes Consulting, has is we go to the professional development events because I want to learn more about AI. I want to
Mm-hmm.
learn more about new strategies and new platforms for tax purposes. You know, I want to learn about some of these new platforms and strategies and opportunities that are out there. I want to go after some of these government contracts, and I'm doing that now. So how can I become better at it? And so there are a lot. There's a plethora of professional development opportunities that I get, and I pay for it by getting my membership in Black Brand. And I tell you, it's worth every penny. Worth
Mm-hmm.
every penny. And when I think about professionals who are really on top of their game, all of them are involved in professional organizations.
Right.
And these professional organizations provide opportunities for professional development. Okay, so I see this. I can see this. 3%. I need to take 3% of my income every year and dedicate that towards professional or personal development.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the 3% rule.
That's the 3% rule. That's the Earl Nightingale rule, or the 3% rule.
How does it correlate with what the Elijah Muhammad taught? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us.
Well, if you take his economic blueprint, now he may not have gone into it, in detail, but if he were still among us and we had a sit down with the messenger, I think he would concur that if we're going to be masters of our economic resources in order to build this nation that he talked about, this black nation that he talked about, that we have to read about things. When you look at Malcolm, okay, he was a voracious reader across genres, across different subjects. Even when he was in prison, he was reading different schools of thought, different philosophies. While he was in the nation, he had folks like Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben and others where he would study and then synthesize what he learned from the outside with the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad on the inside, and be able to come with a message that could speak to multiple various audiences, crowds, things of that nature. Okay.
Okay. All right. So that's the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, or some might say the Honorable Elijah Poole Bey.
Mm.
Elijah Poole Bey, because reports have shown that Elijah Poole Bey was also involved in the early beginnings of what became the Moorish Science Temple of America. Speaking of the MST,
Mm.
Prophet Noble Drew Ali says, "Our plight will change when we change ourselves. Our plight will change when we change ourselves. Our
Mm.
situation will change when we improve ourselves." Oh man, I see the 3% rule all up in here, man.
And
Oh, I see the 3% rule all up in this. Yes.
and and
Ashe.
and for those who are practicing Ramadan at this point, I know if you go into the Quran, uh, there's a passage where it says that Allah will not change the condition of a people until the people change it themselves. Okay.
Oh, you got to repeat that. You got to repeat that, bro.
Allah will not change the condition of a people until the people change it themselves.
Wow, I like that. And now I'm raking my mind trying to find a passage in a canonized Bible that speaks to that as well. And it may come to me. So, Code Keepers, if you're watching, tap in and let me know what the Bible talks about in regards to professional development or personal enhancement. Um,
Mm.
I know it's in there. I know I've seen it, and it's on the tip of my tongue. The unfortunate piece is the things that I'm right now. I'm really in the Generational Flip documentary series. We
Mm.
talk about the parable of the talents, which is in the book of Matthew,
Right.
and in that parable, Yeshua is teaching about this master who is going away, and he's like, "Yo, let me get three of my trusted servants." And the
Mm-hmm.
one he gave 5 talents, one he gave 2 talents, one he gave 1 talent, right? And when he came back, the one who he gave 5 talents doubled it. So now it was 10 talents. And these
Mm-hmm.
were, these had value of commerce. These were value of money. All right. So let's just say he gave one $5,000, another one $2,000, and the last one $1,000. And $5,000 turned into 10.
Mm-hmm.
$2,000 turned into 4.
Mm-hmm.
$1,000 remained $1,000 because that particular servant was scared.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so I tell you what, that story has really been running through my head. It
Well,
sounds to me like that one servant did not invest in personal development.
here's another lesson you can take from that parable. Okay, What Yeshua was trying to teach the people when he gave that lesson was this: all of us are responsible for not just creating value, but increasing value.
Oh, hey, that's
Okay.
beautiful.
And
I,
and if you
yeah.
and if you look at the etymological root of the word value, it means to add strength.
Oh, so that means to ratchet up, not the ghetto ratchet, which talks about somebody who
Right.
needs to get
To to to
ratcheted.
to add strength. So if you're going to add value to a situation, so in this case, a financial situation. So the first servant, okay, he took those 5 talents, doubled it. So he increased the value, or he added strength to the initial seed money that was given to him. Okay.
Ashe.
The second uh, servant, 2 talents, increased its value, doubled it to 4. The third one, for whatever reason, you say it was fear, we'll go with that, buried the talent, and no value was, not only was there no value created, there was no value added to the initial seed money. So there was no ROI. And that's
Yeah.
and that's why the master was like, okay, take that from him, give it to the first one. And a lot of people, I think, misinterpreted it because they looked at it emotionally, saying, well, that's not fair. But if you understood the lesson that was being given, that it's about whatever we've been given, how do we increase the value of what we've been given by the universe and the ancestors?
Ooh, there was a woman I used to date who used to quote, "It's hard but fair. It's sad but so." And
Mm,
she would say that when we were looking at situations like that, where you're like, well, they could have looked out for him. It's hard but fair, sad but so. So we just finished. You mentioned that we still have some of our code keepers and beloved who are celebrating and honoring and what's the word I want to use? They're doing Ramadan right now. They're
mhm,
observing Ramadan,
right.
right? And many of my fellow believers, we just observed Easter,
Mhm,
right? And it's interesting because every year I put out an Easter message. I'm gonna have to see if I can pull up my Easter message for this year. But my Easter message came from my father, the late great Dr. Reverend Samuel Varner, and he would teach us every Easter that the story of Yeshua dying and being resurrected was the story of us.
mhm,
And he said he would always say the book is about you as well. So
mhm,
when we look at the narration of the Easter story,
mhm,
and I look at this Nightingale's 3% rule,
right.
one of the messages in the resurrection story is that there's going to be a part of you that's going to die,
Mhm,
but it's for the greater good. There's a part of you that's going to die, but you're going to be resurrected in a more glorious form when it's over, right? So there's something that you got to give up. That strategy of investing 3% into personal development means you're going to give something up.
mhm,
If we're going to read for 4 hours a night, or if it's for an hour and a half a night, if we're going to learn about our area of commerce, 4 hours, 1 hour, 1 or 2 hours, whatever it is,
right.
you're giving something up for the greater good. And when you arise, you'll be better for the world than you were before you went to sleep,
Mhm.
before you became dormant. You know,
Now, in business, the term we use is opportunity cost.
true, true.
Okay. And to make it more simple in terms of the resurrection story, look at it this way: the acorn has to die to give way to allow the oak tree within it to emerge.
Ashe. The larva has to die and go through a change process to become that butterfly.
Okay, because it's like we see the acorn, but we don't realize that there's an oak tree within it waiting to emerge. So the acorn has to give up its shell, it has to give up its seed, it has to be planted in fertile soil, it has to be nurtured, it has to be fed in order for that oak tree to reach its maximum potential. But the acorn has to give way to the birth and the growth of the oak tree.
Wow, I love that, man. One of the things my father used to teach me, and I didn't understand the metaphysical teachings at that time. I thought he was just Bible thumping. Was
Mm,
that a lot of the stories and a lot of the guidance that's found in the canonized Bible revolves around the idea that you have to sacrifice for the greater good to be able to do more later on. You
mm,
sacrifice now, you do more later on.
mm.
And this
Well,
the way you just described with the acorn is
mm,
another beautiful example of that. So let's bring this back to 3% rule, man.
right.
So if Earl Nightingale, and you actually said Brian Tracy at the very beginning.
Yeah,
So
this came out of Brian Tracy's book. For those who are just joining us, this is the book called "The Science of Money" by Brian Tracy. I highly recommend you read this. Like I said, it's a series of interviews that he is conducting, where he talks about business, talks about earning income, increasing your income, and how do you build the financial freedom and the economic independence that we all seek. And one of the things that he mentioned was the Earl Nightingale rule, or the 3% rule. 3% rule meaning that 3% of your income must be reinvested in yourself through your personal and your professional development.
Ashe. Hey, brother, I think that anybody watching this has really gained a fuller understanding of the science of money is the 3% rule. One of the things that I think is so important for us to re-emphasize, not just emphasize, but re-emphasize, is that your mindset determines the limits of your earning potential.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know better, you do better. You know more, you can earn more.
Mm-hmm.
If you know less, you're going to learn less.
Mm-hmm.
I love how this all kind of correlates because some of us are like, hey, science of money, let me tap in and see what the science of money is so I can take my few dollars and increase them. And some people thought it was an investment strategy, or we were going to talk about which stocks you should invest in, or what startups you might want to invest your funds in, or what businesses you can get involved in. Now, but that's not what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about investing in yourself
Mm-hmm.
to make yourself a better recipient of the energy that's out there in the world that relates to commerce, so you can receive more, making yourself a better vessel,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's what we're talking about.
Right. And you can also, I guess you would call it PPV, not pay per view, but PPV, performance, productivity, value. Because the more you invest in yourself, the greater performance you can give, the greater productivity you will have, and the greater value that you will give, not only to whether it's your job or whether it's to the market as an entrepreneur or as a professional investor. Okay. So we always have to, and like you talked about, if we want this wealth that we always talk about, we have to begin to expand ourselves. So the we can't play small ball. Okay, we have to allow ourselves to expand. In other words, who we are now cannot be who we are as the journey progresses. So part of us will have to die in order for other parts of us to emerge and grow.
That's right. You'll die, and with the knowledge, if you do the knowledge, you'll arise, you'll be resurrected in a more glorious form. So I want to go out by saying, hey, check out generationalflip.com. That's generationalflip.com. You'll find the two episodes for the documentary. I'm working on episode 3 right now. And Zumbi, we'll have your Science of Beef in episode 3.
Okay.
Once again, episode 1, You Will Be Wealthier. It's $5. Episode 2, We Will Be Wealthier. $4. I'm not sure what we're going to do with episode 3, but hey, Code Keepers, invest in yourselves. This is one way that you can invest in yourself. And also, Zumbi, show that beautiful manifesto of yours again, bro.
Oh, yes. So for those who would be interested, this is GOAT. This is the Gospel of Afronomics Theology. This is what I call um, my 21st century Black economic blueprint. Um, 22 years worth of research and personal experience in areas of business and personal finance, and giving our people an opportunity to look at uh, economics through an African centered lens. I don't think there's enough material out there that addresses the economic needs of the African rural community and its citizens.
All right. And with that, we just want to say, hey, look, we love y'all. We hope you love yourselves, love everyone around you. Sow into yourself. Take 3% of your income and invest in your personal development. You work hard, make sure that your money helps you to advance you to a better place. All right. Invest in yourselves. We love you. Stay on code. Become the code. Teach the code. Explain the code. Live the code. Our code is empowerment. And yeah, we're done. Peace.
Peace.